Good day everyone, welcome back. In today's video we're going to be looking at semantic and non-semantic elements. Now what does this mean? Now semantic elements are HTML elements that tells us something about what it does. For example, if you look at this image here, we have the header tag, after the header tag the nav, after the nav we have a section, after the section article, then aside, then footer. Now just by looking at these tags you can get a rough idea of what they do. The header tag gives us a header, the nav tag is used to wrap our navigation menu, then the section is used for a section, article can be used for text in our web page which is important, aside is used for a side navigation or a sidebar, while footer is used to display footer links and whatnot. So that's what semantic HTML is. It's just basically tags that tell us what they do. Now what are non-semantic elements? Now non-semantic elements are just the opposite of semantic elements. They are just generic tags that don't tell us what they do but are very useful. A very big example of that is the div tag, which stands for division, and the span tag, which is very useful for text. Now first of all, before we look at these two, let's look at the semantic HTML. Now how can we build something like this? How can we build a basic HTML web page correctly using semantic HTML? Let's clear all this, save and refresh. Now let's say we have a header now, and in our header we want to display some text saying maybe what the name of our website is. So let's say Isdera Technologies, then refresh this page, you can see this now. Now after our header we can now use the nav tag. Now the nav tag is used to declare navigation links. So now let's create some links. We can have home. Now for this example we're not going to be linking to any actual pages, we'll just have the links listed. After home, have about us. After about us we can have services. After services we can now have contact us. Okay, now if we go back to this image, you can see that we have structured our header and nav. The next thing we can move over to is to create a section. Now one important thing you can do when creating something like this is, look at this, we have the section and the article, then the aside. Now you can look at all this as one wrapped component in this web page, and that's very useful when styling. So how can you do this? We can use the non-semantic tag, which is div tag, as a division between this and the next section. So now in this division we can now create this component. Now when looking at a block of anything that you want to turn into a website using code, it's good to always look at them as something grouped. Now you can see we have the header spanning all through, so we can just look at this as one component on its own. This is also one component on its own, and footer is also another component on its own. Now, but you can see the section, article, and aside don't actually span full width or height, so we can look at this as grouped. Now, still inside this grouped component, you can see that we have two columns, which is the section and article, then the aside. So we can also look at this as two different components. Now, to structure this correctly, we can create another div inside this div, which will contain these two. Then next to it, we can now have an aside tag. Then the side tag can just list some generic text, then create a paragraph tag, then rem, let's see, 50. Let's save this and go back. So now we have this. So now let's first of all create a section. Then this section can be about us. In the paragraph, we also have some text. Save this. Okay. Then we can now have an article. Then this article can contain some more text about us. So you can just use this as an introduction. Then you can write the main about your company in the article. So now this is how this looks. To actually achieve something like this with the section here, the article here, then the aside by the side, we use CSS. But since we've not looked at anything in CSS yet, we'll just leave this as it is. And remember, semantic elements just tell us what they do and tell the browser what it does, but does not actually change any styling that you may have when using any other tag. So if we use the div tag, we will not see any visible difference with this. So any other thing you want to do to either position anything else on this page, you'll be using CSS for that. So now we've created the section, article, and aside components. Let's create the last component, which is the footer. And the footer, we can have just some basic text. So first of all, can get what is the HTML entity for copyright. Okay, so it's and copy. So as I said in previous video, you don't need to store all this in your head. All you just need to do is that all this is all available to you anytime you need it, and you can just Google to find out what character code is for what entity. So now write, let's say, copyright 2024 all rights reserved. Let's save this, and now we have our footer, and even though this is depreciated, you can just use it to make this look a bit more appealing. But when you want to center text in an actual website, you use CSS for that. Okay, so now we've been able to structure this website correctly. Now using this structure, it will be easy for you to now style this website, since you've been able to actually define what each section is. So you can just start your styling from the header. You can start styling by centering this text, then you style your navigation bar, then the div section. You can use CSS to align this section, which is this, to the left and put it aside to the right. Then after that section, you have the footer. So that's basically using the semantic elements. Now don't forget, you can also use just generic div tags for all this and you still achieve the same results, no problems. But why it's more advisable to build websites like this is using semantic tags tell your browser what those sections or components actually are. So let's say a user searches for your website, something that's inside an article like this may actually show up under your website's result. Like you can have the Zero Technologies, then the text inside the article can then show up under telling the user what the Zero Technologies is about before the user actually clicks on that link to view your full website. So it's very good for search engine optimization, which helps your websites rank higher in Google search. So now that I've looked at this, let's look at the non-semantic elements. So we've looked at one, which is div, and let's look at the span tag. Let's say you have some text. This is some text. Okay, first of all, let's divide all this. Let's wrap this in a div. This is some text. Save this. And now we have this. This is some text. Let's say you want to have some, then okay. Let's say you now want to style some things in this. You want to style some text in this line of text. Let's say you want to have this word text to be different from the rest of all this. Now you can achieve this by using a span tag. So ideally we don't want to have to create another paragraph tag inside the paragraph just for one word. You can just use a span and wrap text inside it. Save this and refresh. So there's not actually any visible difference, but when styling you can just access only this span tag and style whatever is inside it. And remember, you can add as many things you want inside this span tag. There's no limit to how many things you can add. So let's say I now put in, make this, save, made this h1. So now anything inside this span tag and also inside this h1 tag will carry header 1. So that's basically one very good use of the span tag. Okay, so now before we go, I want to also remind us that we have many different semantic HTML elements, but we just looked at the basic ones. If you want to look at more, you can just head over to W3 Schools HTML semantic elements, and there is a whole list of a bunch of them. So we've looked at article, aside, so there is detail, feed caption, figure, footer, header, main, mark, nav, section, summary, time. So we have all of this. You can just check out what they do, and yeah, so we can actually look at this main. So most times this main is just used to wrap everything that's in your website. So you can, instead of using a div here, you can wrap all this into a main. So telling your browser that this is where the main section of your website starts from. This is where the main information starts from. So if you refresh, you still see no visual change in appearance of this, but it tells our browser something different now. So now that's basically it for semantic and non-semantic elements. I hope you've learned something, and any other thing you need, it's always good to, after each class, go and make more research on that topic. Anything that was not covered, you learn more about it, and everything that was taught, you can just practice it, get more familiar with it. And yeah, see you in the next class. So in our next class, we'll be building a simple HTML web page using everything we've learned, and we'll be using best practices such as using semantic elements for our sections and whatnot. So see you in that video, and I'm happy that I'm seeing you all the way at the end of the HTML section. So get ready and get anticipated for CSS. That is where the fun begins. So see you in the next video. Bye.